But today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about a little sociology and perhaps good old-fashioned manners, and just as shocking as it may sound, to be nice to people. Now, think about this for a moment. Think about how much we have changed, and I would say maybe not for the better over the years. I'm not trying to say everything in America was always sunshine and lollipops, but you probably would agree with me that as a society that we simply aren't as nice as we used to be. Road rage, political battles, people, maybe talking heads like me are part of the problem. I don't know. Don't even get me started on social media and the cesspool that it is. Is there a way back? And what are the consequences if we don't just simply do better? My guest today has written a book. It's entitled The Soul of Civility, Timeless Principles to Heal Society and Ourselves. It was just released a couple days ago, Tuesday to be exact. Her name is Alexandra Hudson, and she joins us now. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Thank you for being here. I'm interested in knowing your background before we get into the book. So tell us all about Alexandra.
So I am someone who's passionate about storytelling and ideas and conversation and people. Relevant to my book, I was raised in a home that was very attentive to civilities and social norms. My mother is called Judy, the manners lady, and while writing this book, Dave, I discovered that my mother is only one of four women who are named Judy, who are internationally renowned experts in manners and etiquette. So my mother always taught us, to mind our P's and Q's growing up. But I always rebelled. I'm constitutionally allergic to authority, and I never wanted to do what I was told.
I love that.
For that reason, I always questioned these norms, and I was able to question those in the process of writing this book as well. So now it's a thing, and really thrilled to share it with the world.
What did you say? Constitutionally opposed? Is that what you said?
Constitutionally allergic.
Allergic. Okay, I'm sorry. To rules. I am. You and I are going to get along great because I'm right there. I'm right there with you. Now, what led you to write a book such as this? And we'll get into it a little bit in detail. But what led you to write the book?
So my mother, growing up, promised us that the rules of politeness and decency towards others would serve me well and rule in work and school and life. And even though I questioned them, I followed them generally. And she was right until, Dave, I got to the United States Department of Education. I took this role in government in a very divided season of our public life. Mm-hmm. And there I saw these two extremes. On one hand, there were people with sharp elbows willing to step on anyone to get ahead, the hostile, aggressive type. On the other hand, at first I thought these were my people, Dave. There were these polished, poised, collected, well-mannered people. But these are the people who would smile at me one moment and stab me in the back the next. And at first I thought these were two extremes, the extreme hostility and extreme politeness. But I actually realized that they're two sides of the same coin. They're actually very similar because both want to use people. So they see people as a means to their selfish ends, as opposed to seeing people who are human beings just like us, who are worthy of respect, a bare minimum of respect. So that clarified for me this essential distinction between civility and politeness, which is a core argument of my book.
Okay, all right. So there's a definite difference. So how did we get here as a society? I mean, we, as I said in the intro, Alexander, we weren't always sunshine and lollipops, but over the last several years, that's gone to the extremes, and we'll talk maybe about social media a little bit later on. But overall, how did we get to where we are now?
There's no question that we live in a very divided moment. But what I learned there's a reason I wrote my book now, because I wanted to be part of the solution. But what I learned while writing this book, and again, this book is a product of almost a decade of work and a lifetime of thought. What I realized while writing this book is that this is not a new question. This is not an America problem. This is not a modernity problem. This is a timeless human problem. As long as we've been around, Dave, we've been deeply social. We've wanted to come in together in relationship as a species. But we're also defined by self-love. Morally and biologically, we want to meet our own needs before others. And those two facets of who we are, the social and the selfish, are in tension. And that is why friendship, community, civilization, democracy is fragile. And it requires vigilance, the vigilance of each of us to surrender the selfishness in our everyday lives, in the small ways and the large ways, to do this thing called life together. And so how do we get here? There's no question that things are the same, but also there's some things that are different. Our public discourse has been coarsened, and we have new technologies that make our selfishness, it hits people in new ways. We're all of a sudden able to offend and hurt people and spread misinformation in unprecedented ways. So things are the same in many ways, but things are also different in many ways too. But we need to understand the difficulty and timelessness of this problem, because if we don't sufficiently diagnose this problem, if we say, oh, it's just Donald Trump or it's just Twitter, when those things go away, we're still going to be left with this problem. So we have to sufficiently diagnose and understand the difficulty of this problem and the role we each have in being part of the solution if we're going to make things any better.
See, I have always said, and we're talking with Alexandra Hudson, and I've always said on this subject, particularly you mentioned Twitter or X as it's now known, or any kind of or any kind of social media. People may have always had this mindset of, well, you're my political enemy or whatever the case may be, so I can be polite to you, but because of social media, you don't necessarily have to. And there's a meme that always floats around that I see that says, life is short. Please spend all the time you can arguing with total strangers on social media. And now with social media, half the time the people you're arguing with aren't even real. They're bots.
That's right.
So keep that in mind. You're arguing to a wall. Right. And, I may be as guilty as the next person, to be honest. I try to be an easygoing guy, but life and people and such. So, Alexandra, help me do better. What can you do for me?
No, you're right, Dave. Life together is hard. It is very difficult. And that is why it's fragile. Like, it's never a foregone conclusion. Like, I don't know if you're married, Dave, but I'm married. At its core, marriage is a friendship. And it's fragile. Like, at the moment you put a friendship or a marriage or a civilization or a democracy on autopilot and say, okay, just let it run, that's the beginning of the end. That we each have a role to play in maintaining a friendship, a relationship, a marriage, and civilization, and how we choose to sacrifice our immediate needs for the sake of the other in our everyday. So, for example, I don't know if you have watched Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm a big fan of Larry David. And in my book, I talk about why Larry David may be the single greatest defender of civilization today. Why? Because he's a social assassin, he calls himself. He's a person that is he's always looking around and looking for people that are violating the social contract, like the social contract between citizens that helps keep life peaceful. And so, for example, he's in line for a buffet, and then someone comes up to the person in front of him and starts a conversation with someone they barely know in hopes of cutting in line. And Larry David says, I know what you're doing. This is a chat and cut. Not today. Sorry, this is not happening. Get to the back of the line. He calls her right out in front of everyone and sends her to the back of the line. But the thing is, every single day, people try and cut these corners, right? Like, it's called the fundamental attribution error in psychology. Like, we think that we're the exception to the rule. We know our motivation, where someone else is wasting our time when they're late, but we were late because our kid was sick and traffic, and it was beyond our control. We have more grace for ourselves, and we tell ourselves stories of exoneration, but for others, we're very exacting and they're wasting our time. And so, but Larry David, he's an equal opportunity social assassin. Like, whoever is, breaking the rules of propriety and decency that help keep our society intact, he'll call them out and he keeps us in check. And I argue that that's essential, because if we don't want autocrats or politicians to micromanage our daily interactions for us, we need to do it ourselves. And when we don't, it's good to have Larry David as like a buttress. Like, we never know when we could be called out by the Larry Davids of the world. So keep us in check. Keep in mind,
it's around you all the time. Alexandra, I tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Where can people pick up a copy of your book? I was reading some reviews of the book online just before the show this morning. It's only been out a couple of days. It's already huge. Where can people get a copy of the book?
Thank you so much. The book is available anywhere books are sold, so Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, but fine. I always love to support local bookstores.
Yes.
So if you have a local bookstore in your area, ask them to
We have a
carry
great
it
one right here in Charleston called Taylor
Love
Books.
it.
Taylor
Well,
Books.
hope they carry it. That'd be great. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dave.
All right, thank you for being here. And when you go to get the book, when you go in line, people, please don't cut in front of people in line because the next
not.
Larry David could be there. Alexandra, I appreciate you. Good luck with everything. We'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Dave.
All right, this is Alexandra Hudson, the author. The Soul of Civility, Timeless Principles to Heal Society and Ourselves is the name of the book. So go pick it up. And I don't know if those folks at Taylor Books are listening right now, but if they are, try to get it and support those local bookstores, all right? I mean, it's a message I think that we could all use. People are probably thinking, why in the heck did he have this person on? Well, you know, it's one of those things. Every now and then you just got to say, well, you know what? Maybe we all, including myself, could do a little bit better. And let me knock out a couple texts here on the subject. Text says, your guest is describing precisely the political climate on the inside, as they say. People are pleasant to your face, but will rip you a new one behind your back. Most of them are all self-serving monsters, according to a texter. Let's see. What's the mental science? Is a texture behind Republicans. See? We're already going there. What is the mental science behind Republicans choosing between a sex abuser, ignorer, Jim Jordan, and a KKK sympathizer in Steve Scalise? Republicans are a problem when they choose between these types to lead the party. It firmly cements my decision to vote Democrat. And that certainly is that texture's right. But again, talking about civility, which doesn't necessarily have any political lines. All right. One side is just as guilty as the other, if not more so.